Mic test 1 2, mic test 1 2. Hello and welcome everybody to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. Today we're going to be talking about the culture war as it is brewing surrounding Bitcoin. Yeah, we're going to get a little political today, so if you don't want to hear it, then I understand, and we'll see you guys a little later on in the show. We're going to start off with that topic so we can move on from there. This is definitely surrounding DeSantis's Bitcoin statements as far as the Republican Party is concerned, and then the environmental issues surrounding Bitcoin. These are pretty much the sticking points between the parties. And so when we are discussing this, it's important to go ahead and point out, individuals within the parties' belief systems surrounding cryptocurrency mining and so on. We're also going to be talking about Nvidia's blockbuster outlook, reminding Bitcoin miners to give AI a look. This is something that you do want to take into consideration, especially as a GPU miner. We're also going to be talking about Hotbit exchange closing down, the cybersecurity firm claiming it hacked a seed phrase from a Trezor wallet, and a whole bunch of news on Caspa, some new coins that have been released, some new GPUs that have been released, some GPU price cuts, and some new Bitcoin miners and other ASICs that have been released, as well as, of course, all of the good stuff from new miner releases, profitability, and so on. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Let's go ahead and start things off with an ad. Today's sponsor is BT Miners. BT Miners has been a long-time sponsor of the channel and a proven reliable source for ASIC miners. If you're looking to purchase ASIC hardware from Bitcoin to Dogecoin miners, they are available for purchase on bt-miners.com. BT Miners is a trusted source by both ASICminervalue.com and cryptominer.com. Follow the affiliate link in the description and tell them SOT sent you to support the channel. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So to start things off, let's go ahead and deep dive straight into this. DeSantis says, quote, Bitcoin represents a threat to the current regime. Florida's governor and the Republican Party's latest leadership candidate talked crypto and central bank digital currencies in a Twitter space with Elon Musk. In the latest contender for the leadership of the Republican Party said he is an advocate for crypto. Quote, the current regime clearly has it out for Bitcoin, end quote, Ron DeSantis said during a Twitter space with Elon Musk and venture capitalist David Sachs, in which he officially announced his bid for U.S. president. Quote, and if it continues for another 4 years, they'll probably end up killing it, end quote. DeSantis said he views crypto as a question of civil liberties. Now, here's the thing real quick before we get into this. If we are talking specifically about presidential candidates from both parties, we have to take into consideration that it doesn't look like Trump is friendly to cryptocurrency. And as opposed to that, of course, on the Democrat side, it doesn't seem like the Biden administration has been friendly towards crypto mining either, or crypto in general. So there is Kennedy on the Democrat side, there is DeSantis on the Republican side, and you go ahead and take a look at both of their platforms, what they think and so on, and then make your educated decision from there. And I mean, I'm a single issue voter for the most part. I'm going to look at what their stance is on cryptocurrency, because I do believe, like he says here, that it is a question of civil liberty. As Florida's governor, he signed legislation prohibiting the use of central bank digital currencies with the state, although some lawyers question if the law does what it says. Quote, I just do not have the itch to have to control everything that people may be doing in this space, end quote, he said. Bitcoin represents a threat to them. They're trying to regulate it out of existence. Now, we've talked about this a ton in the past. If we reference things like software and so on, there are technically legitimate concerns surrounding the power of the US dollar as a reserve currency and the adoption of cryptocurrency in general. So to pretend that cryptocurrency does not delegitimize the US dollar as a reserve currency would be a miss. We have to understand that this is part of that digital transformation. The fear, of course, I think coming from the fundamental Bitcoin side of things is going to surround more along the control and the financial freedom given to the people, as opposed to what we could see moving into something like a central bank digital currency, which removes a lot of freedoms that we even still have surrounding, of course, the US dollar. So it is a little bit of a touchy situation. If you are a US resident, you're used to the world economy being driven by the US dollar and reaping the rewards of that in particular. Now, outside of the US, there are, of course, partnerships, and depending on your geographical location, the US dollar being the primary reserve currency could be a benefit or a disadvantage to you, just depending on where you're at. The situation, though, is going to be pretty bumpy if I had to take a bet on that. During the interview, DeSantis insisted on congressional authorization for a CBDC, vowing to avoid it during his potential presidency due to concerns over its potential misuse to influence politically unfavorable purchases. Some have argued, however, that CBDCs enshrine constitutional protection over commerce, giving these unfavorable purchases or merchants, such as someone buying ammunition or a pornographer selling their creations, a defense against unbanking that can't be used when dealing with a private company. Regardless, CBDCs might be the newest wedge issue in U.S. politics. In a recent interview with CoinDesk, Samuel Arms, president of the Florida Blockchain Business Association, which helped draft DeSantis' anti-CBDC bill, said that DeSantis' office has gotten more phone calls about CBDCs than any of the usual issues. A recent poll from Quinnipiac University shows that DeSantis still trails former President Donald Trump among Republican and Republican-leaning voters, with 56% supporting Trump, followed by 25% for DeSantis. Now, this is something to pay close attention to. If we look at the polls on the Democrat side, they're even completely dropping Kennedy from those polls. So, and as you guys know, polls can be manipulated, etc. Is this an accurate representation of voters? Hard to tell. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think it is this stark of a difference of support for Trump over DeSantis at this point? DeSantis isn't the first Republican candidate to mention Bitcoin. Former pharma entrepreneur and long shot contender Vivek Ramaswamy, golly, I can't do that one, I'm sorry, said on stage at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami that the next election should be a referendum of fiat currency, and also has come out against CBDCs with a HE double hockey sticks no. Now, I do appreciate this as well. Here's another question. Are we going to be pro cryptocurrency Bitcoin? And if that goes away, is the fighting point going to be pro CBDC versus keep the fiat system as it currently is, right? And I think those will be discussions that can happen too, even within, anti-cryptocurrency legislation versus anti-CBDCs legislation, which are two very different things that could swing, across party lines for the anti-CBDC portion of things. That being said, it does feel like there is a culture war brewing, and that is surrounding Bitcoin. This is an opinion piece by CoinDesk, And so let's go ahead and get into it and see what they are referencing here. It does say that this week, CoinDesk published one of the most thought-provoking and balanced articles on Bitcoin mining I've ever read. We've gone over a lot of these. It is going to highlight some of this, and it's surrounding the report that was focused on Green Ridge Bitcoin mining company in upstate New York, which was the center of a protracted media cycle last year after environmental activists claimed the facility was boiling the waterways and poisoning delicate ecosystems. Those claims went on to influence an actual policy decision by Governor Kathy Hochul restricting Bitcoin mining in the state. The thing is, most of the worst claims about Green Ridge were straight up wrong. CoinDesk's Nick D and Doreen Wang and Cheyenne Legan took a trip to Dresden in upstate New York to take the temperature of the lake and speak to locals, finding that not a single lawmaker visited the Rust Belt town or spoke to its mayor before drafting what essentially was a freeze on Bitcoin miners. Most of the Bitcoin mining debate today has centered around the Bitcoin network's environmental impact. Green Ridge became a lightning rod because before the company moved equipment into the plant that now uses natural gas, it was deactivated, meaning when miners turned on or were turned on, they weren't just drawing on electricity that would have been produced anyway, but actively releasing fresh carbon into the atmosphere. The Bitcoin network uses as much energy as a country like Norway, and trying to wrap your head around whether that is or isn't worth it often comes down to your point of view on how you value permissionless money. And of course, all of the guys are going to echo, the Bitcoin maximalists, cryptocurrency supporters for proof of work in the comment section below, as well as in the live chat. Will point out that the current traditional financial system with all of its servers and the banking system and so on is using just as much, if not more energy as Bitcoin is right now. Individuals can certainly make up their minds on the matter, but how a state should treat Bitcoin, for instance, whether mining should be encouraged or banned, is a societal level conversation involving politicians, stakeholders, and those affected. As I've said before, a lot of this is going to come down to states' rights, not dissimilar from marijuana or gun laws, right? I think you'll see different states adopt different policies surrounding cryptocurrencies, and there will be an advantage to being a citizen of one state over another within the United States to reap the rewards of beneficial cryptocurrency policy and legislation at the state level. And putting in blocks, of course, to CBDCs in places like Florida is going to be enticing to a certain portion of the population. In a behind-the-scenes account of how the story came to be, Day wrote that he expected locals to hate the plant. He and his team had heard that Green Ridge was pumping pollution into Seneca Lake and creating incessant noise, a claim that was also debunked. Instead, Dee's team found that many in the town and surrounding areas supported the upstart business. Although Green Ridge created a relatively small number, every job counts in a town like Dresden, population 296. I mean, that is pretty incredible. If you basically hire 3 people, then you have just, increased the job market by 10% there. I mean, that's pretty good, or employment by 10%, right? In fact, the few complaints about Green Ridge lodged by locals came from so-called cottage people, the wealthy out-of-towners with vacation homes on the lakeshore. Sure, as taxpayers, these people have a right to be concerned about their property value, but should their opinion matter more? Ooh, it goes back, this is crazy. It goes back to that argument of the haves versus the have-nots, and the have-nots oppressing, or the haves oppressing the have-nots and stripping away jobs for them because they are worried about their property value. It's actually kind of ridiculous if you think about it, because the party alignment would make you think that it was opposite of this, but it is what it is. And here layeth the nut. Beyond all the other intraceable debates about Bitcoin mining lies a class conflict. You all know the story. Bitcoin was born during the Great Financial Crisis, a tool that allowed anyone to access a semi-private electronic cash system where the money supply would always be verifiable, a total rebuke of banking and the Federal Reserve. Over time, the narrative has gotten a little more complicated, especially as some of Bitcoin's biggest supporters have become entrenched elites themselves, essentially for making a few good trades a decade ago. There are now a lot of white-collar jobs based around analyzing Bitcoin's price performance and lobbying for newfangled investment vehicles derived from Bitcoin. And this actually does make me think about that movie Ready Player One, right? Where you kind of have this oppressed people within a virtual world fighting for virtual currencies and products and goods while it is being controlled by the elite that still have fun in the regular world, right? Because they have enough money to do that while you force everybody else into a different position. Is that what could happen with Bitcoin in the future? Maybe, maybe not, right? It depends on how this control goes down, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is limited. So there is a bit of a Trojan horse factor, meaning that if you have the wealthy at least investing in Bitcoin, they are still driving the price up for the less wealthy. And there will not be the potential for the wealthy to benefit from the printing of additional currency, meaning that you kind of level the playing field to a certain extent. Bitcoin mining too has gone from something you could do on your home computer to becoming a highly capital intensive industry, requiring the purchase of hundreds or thousands of specialized computers that drew electricity 24/7 if you want to compete on any meaningful scale. I mean, to be fair, the competition is more about efficiency and less about like total amount, but I understand what the point is, right? Bitcoin mining, but the proof of work algorithm that makes Bitcoin also tethers it to the ground. These investments are being made in real communities. Greenridge, for instance, has hired unionized electricians and created dozens of short-term construction jobs. The company has made a number of improvements into Dresden, including fixing up a children's playground and other beautification efforts. Not all facilities operate their own converted coal plant like Greenridge, requiring as much labor, but many do create opportunities for people where opportunity doesn't always come a knocking. If Greenridge isn't any indication, the real conversations we could be having around Bitcoin mining and class will be increasingly consumed by another conflict, the culture war. I've said for a while, perhaps being too reductionist, that Bitcoin is going to become a red-blue issue in the US, with Republicans increasingly endorsing it and Democrats disavowing. Although the network itself will likely always remain credibly neutral, the way we think about it and politicize it will fall along predictable lines. Many topics have traveled thus. Before climate change became a wedge issue in American politics, for example, it was a relatively nonpartisan issue that many politicians agreed on the need to do something about. Just yesterday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis spoke about Bitcoin's threat to the current regime in an announcement event for his 2024 presidential campaign. Although modeling himself as a populist, DeSantis has the early support of moneyed technologists like Elon Musk and fellow PayPal Mafia member David Sachs. DeSantis is probably most well known nationally for what's been termed the Don't Say Gay bill and a fight with Disney, which, of course, if you guys want to get into all of that, feel free. I'm a single issue voter here for cryptocurrency. You can go jump to the Timcast or one of those if you want to hop into the Don't Say Gay bill and all of that. Something tells me DeSantis' pledge to protect Bitcoin is as performative as his ban on central bank digital currency in Florida before the Fed had even decided whether it's worth fully studying a digital dollar. but it'll still be enough to color some people's impressions of crypto, furthering the type of political feedback loop that enabled environmentalists to lie about Green Ridge's ecological footprint and the Democratic government in New York to buy it whole cloth. As my colleague Nick D said, a conversation doesn't include the people most directly impacted can lead to wonky outcomes. When the only two political parties of consequence are shadowboxing about fake internet money, the only people who can get a word in edgewise probably own a vacation home. And that is really where it comes down to, right? Once again, it's the vacation homes that are anti, and the people that are actually benefiting from cryptocurrency is going to be the lower income in general. So pay attention to this as this plays out. If it turns into this kind of, blue collar versus white collar topic, then things get extremely interesting. And if we do get into a culture war surrounding it, everything will not be what it seems, as it already does appear to already be happening. For example, right, if we talk about this, the entire report that was initially presented to the public surrounding this mining farm in Green Ridge was that it was polluting, which was found to not be true, that it was causing noise pollution, which was found to not be true, and that it was a nuisance to the population that lived there, which turned out not to be true. And so it fell along ideological lines, and it didn't fall along the lines of what was actually happening, right? And that is what I would think you want to take away, regardless of your political position on the remaining aspects of the political parties. But be careful. Like I said, as far as Trump is concerned, which is way ahead of DeSantis at this point, I would not bet that he is pro-Bitcoin, at least from the previous talks that I have listened to from him. So both sides are going to have people that are pro and people that are anti, and paying attention to that is going to be what I encourage you to do, and then make the best decision that you can from there. Let's go ahead and get on to Nvidia and AI. Nvidia's blockbuster outlook reminds Bitcoin miners to give AI a look. Some Bitcoin miners find non-mining AI applications too tantalizing to pass up. Nvidia gave an extremely rosy financial forecast as the chipmaker benefits from surging demand for hardware to power artificial intelligence revolution ushered in by the likes of ChatGPT. It was the talk of Wall Street on Thursday as Nvidia's stock price soared. For Bitcoin miners, it's a reminder that they already have the expertise in data center space to join in and run AI applications. Well, not really, right? This is an interesting one to discuss as well, because if we talk about Bitcoin mining, it has all moved ASICs. So who are the beneficiaries of this particular AI movement? It would be GPU miners. However, not just any GPU miners, but GPU miners that have built themselves something that can handle the kind of processing that is needed. Meaning you are looking at additional PCIe lanes, you are looking at additional bandwidth, you're looking at additional CPU power. So a lot of GPU farms will have to make a transition, which we have seen, of course, in the past, as we've talked about Washington State before, where we saw a transition for one of the larger GPU farms moving over to being classified as a data center and repurposing that equipment for AI and the likes of, and that was probably a pretty good move. But what does that mean for the at-home GPU miner? Well, it means a pretty stark difference in the ability to participate from a financial front. Actually, to the point to where it may be cheaper and more profitable to purchase ASIC miners than it would be to actually upgrade your GPU miners to something that could support AI. And that's something that will have to be taken into consideration as we move forward talking about GPU mining. Because if we are going to need to get massive epic servers with all the PCIe lanes and really shift over into smaller form factor data center GPUs like the A5000s, A4000s, A2000s, that sort of thing, then you aren't going to be repurposing RTX 3070s necessarily for this transition into AI. There are ties, of course, with AI that are going into cryptocurrency as well. So the opportunity isn't just moving into AI as a whole, but being able to mine cryptocurrencies that are integrated with AI, more commonly known as we move forward as proof of useful work in that particular case. Not all proof of useful work is equal either. We basically have three different things that are going on within proof of useful work. One being, of course, AI, but two being solvers, and three being cloud gaming and cloud processing. So there's a lot going on within proof of useful work, and you don't want to plug in Flux versus Dynex versus Pepe Coin AI versus whatever, right? These are all going to have different places within the market based off of what they are able to accomplish and what their actual needed purpose is. So let's go ahead and see what they're talking about though. I don't see Bitcoin miners making this transition personally, is why I point all of this out. Plus, since we're a GPU mining channel and started that way, it's important to understand where the shift is moving. For Bitcoin miners, it's a reminder that they already have the expertise in data center space to join and run AI applications, right? Sort of. The other thing is like, if you are a Bitcoin miner that's deployed containerized setups, this doesn't apply, right? Quote, the overwhelmingly positive market reaction to Nvidia's news will incentivize more mining companies to follow suit, making announcements of their own and allocating more of their power capacity to other forms of compute, said Ethan Vera, Chief Operating Officer at mining services firm Luxor Technologies. Vera noted the Wednesday announcement that Applied Digital, APLD, is working with data center design firm Supermicro, who does a lot of white box servers, by the way, on its AI cloud offering. Applied Digital is one of the handful of miners that have had their eyes on diversifying their data center space into other areas of computing for a while, along with peers Hut 8 Mining and Hive Blockchain. Miners will see better margins in AI than mining, said Applied Digital CEO and Chairman Wes Cummins, at least before another bull run in the price of Bitcoin. Of course, to be clear here, Hut 8 and Hive have been focused on GPU mining, and we were aware and we talked about their transition. Obviously a move that has been paying off, or that will pay off for them through the bear market and probably more than likely into the bull run, because once we move into the bull run, what's the hot topic still going to be? AI. Is that AI integrated into a proof of useful work coin? Is that the coin that pumps? Who's to say for certain, but that is the path of preparation as a GPU miner that I am personally looking at, because I would want to be prepared for that option of being able to participate on proof of useful networks and not be caught behind the 8-ball here, right? However, the transition might not be a straight line. High-performance computing, such as AI and cloud applications, quote, requires a different level of infrastructure build, end quote, than Bitcoin mining, Vera said. Firms will have to hire engineers to plan their sites differently and sales staff to sign up clients, he said. Now, that's where the cryptocurrency and decentralized form of this comes into play, right? It comes into play when we're talking about removing the need to have sales to sign up clients. If you decentralize the AI processing, then you remove the need for a sales staff, okay? It's not a straightforward process for a miner to repurpose their miners for AI compute. Latency, compliance, cooling, environmental factors, humidity and dust, and power redundancy all need to be factored in when upgrading a site. And this is another thing that we have to discuss, a very good point, which is redundancy. In a traditional mining farm, you are running everything all the time. But if you are going to be running AI applications, there has to be some sort of failover. Yes, decentralization can solve this, but in traditional AI with traditional data center infrastructure, for every one GPU, you need another GPU. For every one CPU, you need another CPU. And that needs to be on backup at all times so that you fail over those jobs. This is how you have that infrastructure built out for redundancy. In addition to that, for every UPS, you need another UPS. For every internet connection, you need another internet connection. All of this stuff will basically increase the cost to participate within AI from a GPU standpoint, right? The cost to build a data center in North Dakota that meets the standards of the AI industry was 10 times higher than mining, said Cummins, sharing his experience. Even though most miners are not likely to repurpose their facilities for AI, there are some miners who have always had more diverse approach to their business operation, with high performance compute or edge compute services in addition to Bitcoin mining. With the rapid growth of AI, these companies may accelerate the development of those business lines, said Yuri Bolovic, head of mining at Foundry Digital, which, like CoinDesk, is owned by Digital Currency Group, which they have to announce, of course. I'm glad they always give us that information. Meanwhile, Nvidia's forecast is lifting AI-linked crypto tokens, including Singularity Net, which climbed about 13% on Friday. Fetch AI and Render are up more than 5% in the past 24 hours, according to CoinGecko. So let me know what you guys are thinking as far as your at-home GPU mining. Are you considering moving into AI or prepping for proof of useful work? Are these the types of things you're looking into? Or are you going to just hope that you have the GPU mining market remain the same as it was previous bull run? The failure to adapt is something that does scare me a little bit personally. So I am looking at adapting from my perspective on the GPU mining front. But I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions in the live stream chat as well as the comment section below later on down the line. Now, we had a pretty large exchange closure that we did talk about last week, just to mention actually earlier in the week when we were talking about Caspa in particular and some of the reasons for the reduction in the price before, of course, now this bull run that we just saw, or not bull run, but this increase in price, right? This nice little uptick within Caspa before that. And this could have definitely influenced it, but why? What else has this influenced and why did this happen? Let's go ahead and see if we can figure it out. Hotbit Exchange halts operations and urges users to withdraw their funds. Hotbit said decentralized exchanges are becoming more cumbersome and highlighted that it is, quote, unlikely to meet long-term trends, end quote. Ooh. Is this a bad thing or is this a good thing, right? When we start talking about wanting to fall back into the fundamentals of cryptocurrency, do we want to see failures of centralized entities? Or how much longer do we need centralized entities, I suppose, is the question. Because the question that I have is, how much longer are we participating within the traditional financial system, needing a centralized exchange to participate and move funds back and forth between? In an announcement, the exchange said that its operating conditions have deteriorated since a former member of its team was subjected to an investigation in August of 2022. According to the exchange, the probe forced it to stop its business for weeks. In addition, Hotbit also cited various incidents within the crypto space as contributors to its decline. The exchange cited the FTX collapse and the banking crisis that caused the USD coin depegging event as reasons for its deteriorating cash flow. Hotbit said that the incidents resulted in a continuous outflow of funds from centralized exchanges, which is interesting because if we talk about crypto Twitter and the encouragement that surrounds that, everybody is encouraged to outflow and pull off of centralized exchanges. So this isn't necessarily surprising, especially as people lose trust in the banking system, as well as if you lose trust in the banking system, especially the banks that have been failing tied to cryptocurrency, specifically cryptocurrency exchanges, then you thereby lose trust in centralized exchanges. And to protect your money, you pull out. This actually kind of snowballs the effect on the centralized exchanges and the banks that are pro-crypto, which does bring up a question of, was this the right move for cryptocurrency? Should this have been delayed or tried to be pushed off a little bit further so that there are still good inlets and outlets for cryptocurrency from the fiat system? I don't know. It's kind of an interesting topic, though. The exchange also blamed the repeated cyber attacks and the exploitation of, quote, project defects by malicious users, end quote, as reasons for its downfall. As the announcement came, several members of the community reported that they were unable to withdraw their funds from the exchange. Some also warned community members of phishing links and that pretend to be the official Hotbit exchange on Google. While Hotbit is taking its bow, other exchanges are carrying on, with some launching campaigns to fix the issues in the crypto industry. Crypto exchange Coinbase recently published a campaign to update the system. OKX took it a further step and it wants to rewrite the system entirely. Now, rewriting the system and fixing the system or updating the system doesn't really necessarily work, though, and that is the overarching top-down problem with cryptocurrency, that if you are a supporter of Bitcoin, crypto in general, you think this is the future, you have to realize that the reality of that is a certain amount of economic pain for that to come to fruition. And that is just going to be the case, and there's no really way around it, right? I'd like to say that you could have a completely painless transition from one system to the other, but historically that's never been true. That wasn't true with the agricultural revolution. That wasn't true with the industrial revolution. People suffered in all of these things. And so that will happen again with something as impactful as cryptocurrency could be. And so it's kind of like you have to go through the fire to reap the rewards, you know? Cybersecurity firm claims it hacked seed phrase from a Trezor T wallet in possession. Now, of course, I tweeted and said, well, that's convenient timing, because right before this, Ledger stuck its foot in its mouth and tried to basically, well, they didn't try. They were going to release something that sounded suspicious, that would give access to your funds to potentially the government. And then they basically stuck their foot in their mouth right after that and were like, oh, we've always had that capability if we really wanted to. We just don't because we're nice guys. Okay. And then boom, this happens, right? Unciphered, a cybersecurity firm, claims to have hacked into the popular Trezor T model hardware crypto wallet manufactured by Satoshi Labs. The firm showcased in a video the extraction of the wallet seed phrase, exploiting a hardware vulnerability that requires physical possession of the device. Now, these hardware vulnerabilities in Trezor have actually been around for quite some time. They were supposed to have solved them with the newer models. All of this comes into question if, you know, has that vulnerability just persisted throughout that time, or was it fixed and a new vulnerability was found? We can read more to kind of figure out a little bit about that. But, you know, best advice if you have a Trezor is keep it locked away and keep it safe and don't let it fall into the hands of any other individuals. The problem, I suppose, if you actually got into like the court system or something along those lines, or if it was confiscated, then there is the ability for, you know, that to get extracted off, but that's a completely different topic. Cybersecurity startup Unciphered claims it was able to hack into the popular Trezor T model hardware crypto wallet manufactured by Satoshi Labs. In a YouTube demonstration, Unciphered showcased the apparent extraction of the wallet's mnemonic seed phrase or private key, exploiting a hardware vulnerability that relies on physical possession of the device. This is not the first time Unciphered has seemingly managed to retrieve seed phrases from hardware wallets. In February, the company demonstrated a similar hack on a wallet manufactured by Hong Kong-based OneKey. Hardware wallets, which store private keys offline and are designed to protect crypto assets, are generally considered highly secure. Unciphered said, however, that the hardware security mechanisms of the Trezor T model can be theoretically bypassed if a hacker had a T wallet in possession. The type of exploit depicted by Unciphered would only be feasible if the attacker had physical access to the hardware wallet. In the video, the Unciphered team said it developed an in-house exploit that allowed them to extract the wallet's firmware. Eric Michaud, co-founder of Unciphered, claimed that by leveraging specialized GPU chips, they were eventually able to crack the device's PIN seed phrase. Quote, "We uploaded the firmware we extracted onto our high-performance computing cracking clusters," end quote, Michaud explained in the video. "We have about 10 GPUs, and after some time, we extracted the keys." Michaud further claimed that fixing this exploit for Trezor would require a recall of all their products. Trezor did respond and acknowledged that Unciphered's demonstration had similarities with the read protection downgrade RDP vulnerability discovered by Kraken Security Labs researchers that affected both the Trezor 1 and Trezor Model T. This implies that the vulnerability is not new. Of course, I talked about this earlier and I thought it wasn't a new one. Quote, "This appears to be a vulnerability called an RDP downgrade attack and has communicated on our blog in early 2020, which we did cover way back then. RDP downgrade attacks require physical theft of a device and extremely sophisticated technological knowledge and advanced equipment," end quote. Trezor's chief technology officer, Tomas, said, quote, "Even with the above, Trezors can be protected by a strong passphrase, which adds another layer of security that renders an RDP downgrade useless." Trezor added that it has taken significant steps to resolve the issue in the future by developing a new secure element for hardware wallets with its sister firm, Tropic Square. Now, of course, at any time, we could also just say at the end of the day that if they tried to force an automatic update or something, they fall to the same vulnerability that the ledgers do. And so I think that if we discuss, in my humble opinion, the most secure way to store a crypto, it's still going to fall back to like that paper wallet format, right? Generating one offline, going ahead and utilizing that. And that's going to be the safest manner moving forward. And really even always still has been. There are, your intermediary steps. There are other hardware wallet options. The thing is like when you buy these hardware wallets, you are trusting a company with your crypto at the end of the day, right? So you have that third-party element, albeit, not to the extent of like the banking system, but still you're putting your trust into a company that you really necessarily can't vet fully, right? And this can cause a lot of danger. There are, of course, the options of utilizing as well USB drives and encrypting those. I've covered on how to do that in a bunch of my how to mine videos, so you can definitely check that out. As a GPU miner that mines a ton of shitcoins, it's not really outside of our wheelhouses on this particular channel to be completely familiar with these processes and not utilize from the very get-go the major hardware wallets that store the major cryptocurrencies, because in fact they just don't support the cryptocurrencies that we are primarily participating within. So kudos to you. Your shitcoin mining has taught you to keep your crypto more secure. There you go. Speaking of alt currencies, Caspa community and the exploration of smart contracts. This is a weird one for me because I do not personally think that the value of Caspa is reduced by the lack of smart contracts. Caspa, like I've talked about in the past, its use case is transactional. Its benefit is going to follow along the lines of blocks per second, right? It doesn't have to have a smart contract layer, in my humble opinion. That being said, when you talk to the rest of the community on crypto Twitter, it appears to be an issue that a lot of people bring up as an attack towards Caspa. Now, most of this seems to come between, of course, all of the arguments between the Kadena supporters and the Caspa supporters, which, okay, I get it. That's going to happen. I don't know necessarily that the development distraction needs to go to that. I'm not saying that this is actually what's happening, but let's go ahead and see. It is possible for smart contracts to be on Caspa. What will be the question, of course, is how fast, how soon, and does it affect development of Caspa in other realms, right? So Caspa is evaluating the adoption of smart contracts with the technology known as rollups, designed to improve the speed and efficiency of blockchain transactions. This involves two potential paths, each with its own implications and challenges. Now, coming from Hashtag on Discord, here's the details. We should use rollups tech. Two possible integration concepts: Caspa native SC sequencing and settlement done on KAS, requiring forking and adapting a codebase in Rust of one of the leading RU projects. Now, I suppose if you're going to fork, which for Rust, there is a potential benefit to adding this in as part of that so you're not forking all the time, because that's just a forking pain. You know what I mean? Especially for node runners, right? Pros: native KAS implementation. Cons: major consensus change and heavier lifting on adoption. Candidate is Matter Labs ZK Sync. And then number 2 is Caspa as sequencing layer. Settlement done on Ethereum or on ETH. Requires a modular RU code base that supports switching the sequencing layer from ETH to another. Pros: only minor KAS consensus layer updates supporting blob carrying transactions and smoother adoption process. Cons: life as an ETH sidechain. Main economic activity remains on ETH chain. This makes Caspa dependent on Ethereum, is basically what he's saying here. And so personally, I'd prefer the former to the latter. I would like to hear your thoughts and opinions on this in particular. Do you think, it should be as native SCs, or do you think it should be as sequencing layer, sequencing layer, as a sequencing layer, right? So, though that's pretty much it as far as this is concerned. I lean towards, going the hard fork route, not integrating with Ethereum too strongly. I mean, because at the end of the day, you adopt Ethereum and you adopt all of Ethereum's issues, right? You adopt the chain halts that have been going on, the lack of finalization on the network that has happened here a few times. You also deal with the fees potentially, right? Especially transferring back and forth on that side chain. You could deal with that. Now, if you have your, if you go with option 1 and you integrate bridging over to Ethereum, it's probably still the same user experience, right? As far as like you move over to Ethereum, you're going to experience those types of things. Anyways, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Now, we had a new coin come out, sort of. This is very weird. So Pepe's all over the place. We got Pepe, 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 Pepe. I don't even know which Pepe or Pepe is the Pepe, right? We've talked about the real Pepe or the OG Pepe. They're currently working on Pepe Coin AI, but then this comes out and it's Pepe proof of work, and it has basically confused a lot of people, but also it's extremely popular right now, right? Here's a couple things that a disclaimer about this one in particular is that Chump Change, along with a partner, which I retweeted, I should have pulled it up, had found, a few of the typical virus total reports on the Windows wallet and the Linux wallet and some of the applications. It's just important to note that type of thing. You know, I always recommend utilizing separate VMs for each one of your wallets if possible. The thing is like, if you have a wallet, like if you are utilizing a, you know, like a, let's say, well, like Radiant wallet would be, I guess, suppose it. A lot of the wallet applications are the same across the board. And in some cases, those wallet applications can have access to the data files of your other coins, right? And so if somebody wanted to be, let's say, malicious, they could inject some sort of rat tool into there and then pull all of your .dat files or whatever from other wallets, because this application has access to it, and then basically take the rest of your funds from other wallets. So this is kind of the concern surrounding it. Now, there isn't a lot going on here. As far as like white papers, etc., not a lot to be there. And it does say the total supply is 90 billion. The algorithm is meme hash. The subsidy having interval is 129,600 blocks. And it is 3 times. You have the block time of 20 seconds and the block initial reward of essentially I believe that's 100,000 Pepe W. It says, too good to be true. Memes belong to the people and we're bringing them to proof of work. Fair launch, no pre-mine, and all community driven. Take all of this with a grain of salt, right? And do your research. But to be completely fair, if we look at the profitability, a lot of it is Pepe W right now. So there is, you know, the option of, if you're just wanting to mine and gain profitability, consider the fact that you could go ahead and utilize something like an exchange wallet on ZegX and go ahead and do that for now for the profitability. There are some options surrounding this. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use the restroom real quick because this is going to be a long show, and I am drinking a ton of water because I'm on a fast. So enjoy the ad and I'll be right back. Today's sponsor is BT Miners. BT Miners has been a long-time sponsor of the channel and a proven reliable source for ASIC miners. If you're looking to purchase ASIC hardware from Bitcoin to Dogecoin miners, they are available for purchase on bt-miners.com. BT Miners is a trusted source by both ASICminervalue.com and CryptoMiner.com. Follow the affiliate link in the description and tell them SOT sent you to support the channel. I got you, boo. It's not black anymore. We got it back. We got it back. We're having, it looks like, okay, there we go. I think we are all solid and ready to go. So that's Pepe proof of work. I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions. I'm not too Pepe about it personally. Now we have some GPU launches that have gone on. We have the 4060 Ti, which I'll be working on over on locals.com later on tonight. If you want to go over to sonofatech.locals.com, the early testing will be over there. We'll be testing on this test bench, provided that I get everything functioning properly. I was having some issues with Wi-Fi adapters as well as risers and so on. I think I got it sorted. We'll do some testing. We'll get the power numbers. We'll get the hash rate numbers and all of that. And then, of course, that will be wrapped into a video later on for the channel. That being said, one that I have not picked up yet was the $269 RX 7600 RDNA 3 graphics card. Now, this one's really interesting because this one falls in complete opposite line of what the 4060 Ti did. So what the 4060 Ti did was reduce the amount of memory bandwidth, right? and then it increased its CUDA core count, and then it sped up its memory, and then they added DLSS 3.0 to really compete or beat out, of course, the previous 3060 Ti. In this particular setup, though, Radeon really went the opposite direction, and we can start to see that when we look at what's happening. Now, we got the new GDDR6, so you got a more memory, right? And you have basically a higher core clock. So compared to the RX 6600, it's got, it's faster, right? Across the board, core and memory. But the advantage of the 6600 was that it was a very power efficient mining card. And part of that was because of its power consumption. And if we scroll down here, the biggest takeaway that I found is while we do get more bandwidth on the memory at 288 gigabytes a second versus 224 gigabytes a second on the 6600, we end up with a power that is at 165 watts versus the 132 watts that we had on the 6600. So it's not necessarily going to be something that is more beneficial for mining than it is on the as the 6600. In fact, like, I am cautiously doubtful that it will outperform the 6600 in most tasks. That being said, there is the potential for those core intensive algorithms to be more more beneficial on the 7600 than the 6600. So there is that. But, where are we really headed here in the future? Because it's hard to say if that's what a lot of these coins will be. If most coins go core intensive, of course, from the GPU mining perspective, the fact of the matter is that they're going to not be ASIC resistant. So how much lifespan do you really have on any of the algorithms like Nexa Proof of Work, like Radiant, Caspa is the most recent example, these types of things. If the focus is the core, there's not really a good ASIC resistance or FPGA resistance, which means you're already kind of at a disadvantage if you're purchasing mining equipment or GPUs for mining focused on core heavy algorithms. It is what it is. That being said, a GPU that is priced really, really great and has a ton of memory bandwidth has had a price cut. Now, I've done the review on this. It's a fantastic card on Ergo. And Intel Slash's Arc A750's already great price to just $199. Intel's unbeatable deal just got even more unbeatabler. Intel's Arc discrete graphics cards aren't unseating Nvidia or AMD for pure performance anytime soon, but they are some of the best GPUs on the market in terms of value. In fact, the Arc A750 is our pick for the best 1080p graphics card for ray tracing. And that was before a recent price drop. Initially $289, the A750 was permanently dropped to $250 a few months ago. Today, it looks like the card has another big price drop, all the way down to $199. As videocars.com reports, the new price comes from the official Intel store on Newegg, and it's now been mirrored on the Best Buy online listing as well. We're talking about the official Intel reference card here. Cards from third-party manufacturers haven't seen the price drop yet, though they'll probably follow along soon enough. It isn't clear if this is another permanent price drop or a limited time promotion. Either way, it's the first time we've seen an Arc A700 series card drop below the $200 price threshold. And if you're in the market for a budget GPU, it's worth serious consideration. Intel's cards frequently outperform their rivals at the same price point. In terms of pure performance, the A750 is around the same level as the RX 6600. Now, from a mining perspective, the A750 on the memory intensive algorithms, i.e. Ethereum, i.e. Ergo, this type of thing, it's on par with the RTX 3070. So, The benefits of this is a low cost brand new GPU that also gives you the warranty, right? As opposed to, of course, buying an RTX 3070 used. So that's something that you could consider moving forward. Of course, the downside for the 700 series is you do require resizable bar. So from the GPU mining perspective, once again, you have that shift, that additional requirement in cost, because you will have to upgrade CPU and motherboard for this to actually mine and function properly in a lot of cases. Check out my Intel mining rig build if you're more curious on those requirements. The brand new RX 7600 is probably a better bet for those with a more budget a bit more budget flexibility at a retail price of $269, which might be why the A750 is discounted right now. But the ARC A750 is still a ridiculous deal if you're short on cash and overdue for a desktop GPU upgrade. We don't know how long the discount will last, so get in on it if you're in the market. That's what the article said, not what I said. But there we go. Yeah, Caspa is pumping. Now, the K9S, not a Caspa miner, but we have a DesiWe miner here, a new miner release and announcement, and apparently is official. And I've gotten confirmation on these things actually existing. Really interesting. You'll notice here that we do have the larger plug size, so it's going to take a ton of power right off the bat. You can tell from looking at it, but 4950, basically 5,000 watts power on the wall and 130 terahash. Does say 38 joules per terahash. It doesn't seem extremely competitive as far as, you know, Bitcoin miners go. If we do run that calculation out with 130 terahash at 4950 watts at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, you have essentially a loss of $2.61 a day on profitability. Now, a lot of the Bitcoin miners are staying profitable. If we calculate out to like a common hosting price at 8 cents a kilowatt hour, you're still at a loss, and you're going to be between 8 and 9 cents a kilowatt hour there. But even if you have your own farm and you've negotiated a good power deal, or you are a host yourself, then things start to get better at 6 cents a kilowatt hour at $2.23 a day in profit. Obviously, big takeaway here is you can get away with less efficient equipment and increase the total amount of hash rate, provided that you've negotiated a good power deal, which is becoming more and more difficult. That being said, the good news is we do have a new miner that was announced by Bitmain that will be profitable, at least projected right now. We'll have to see, you know, what happens on release and as the difficulty of the network does come out. But on Equihash here, we have the Zcash miner Z15 Pro, 840 kilosolutions a second at 2,650 watts. In this particular case, if we run that through a calculator at 840 kilohash a second at 2,650 watts at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, it does become profitable at $2.75 a day after power costs. If we reduce that to the average hosting cost at 8 cents a kilowatt hour, you are in profit at $4.03 after power. Of course, these aren't deployed to the network theoretically yet, and as the difficulty increases, this will come down. Finally, if you run a farm yourself and you've negotiated a good power deal at 6 cents a kilowatt hour, you are looking at $5.30 a day in profitability afterwards. So there's all of the new hardware releases that has gone on. So next, we have the SRB Miner Multi version SRB Miner Multi version 2.2.8. Now, this one's extremely interesting because it is a requirement from Dynex to upgrade to. Of course, you do have the option to also upgrade to the 1Z miner, which is extremely controversial now too, as we'll talk about here in a second. But this one in particular has added the algorithm meme hash. So if you're looking for the miner that mines Pepe proof of work coin, here it is. CPU and GPU mining fee is 2% on AMD, Nvidia, and Intel, all supported. Minor improvement for algorithm Dynex in dual mining mode. They fixed hash rate regression on SHA-512-256D Radiant algorithm for the R6600 GPUs in the single mode. They fixed algorithm Lyra 2v2 web chain on Nvidia GPUs broken in previous versions. They fixed algorithm Autolicos 2 in dual mining with Radiant for some GPUs broken in previous version. They added some of accepted rejected hardware error shares to stats, and they added parameter disable GPU dual kernels. Moving on from there, we do have a new version of the Rigel miner, version 1.4.8, which came out 3 days ago. The miner performance improvements are for Ironfish, and then on Alephium, there are some performance improvements for specifically Turing GPUs and newer, so not older ones like Pascal or something along those lines. Finally, the most controversial one of the week is the 1Z miner 1.1.3 for the last phrase here. So significant hash rate increase on all GPUs. Sounds good, right? More than 100% hash rate on 3000 series GPUs. For example, 3090 does 14 kilohash a second with stock settings. Well, hold on. The hash rate increase of this release is not because of any actual improvement. Huh? It is simply because we are using single precision doing math calculations up to 7 decimals for simulating chips compared to double precision up to 15 decimals. That was used in the previous version. Double precision is important for Dynex jobs, especially for machine learning jobs, and we will switch back to it in future releases. Meanwhile, enjoy the hash rate boost. Here is kind of the controversy around this. First of all, if there is no machine learning job going on in particular, right, then has this, obviously you get this performance increase. But let's say you have a job that doesn't require the double precision, and then you have a job that requires a double precision. And the mining developers go ahead and they hold back the software or the code for double precision for themselves or for partners, and they only present forward or hold back, the single precision, and they only present forward the double precision, the harder work, the less hash rate, which of course will translate to less revenue to their customers, right? This actually brings into question a ton of problems surrounding proof of useful work in general, right? At least from my perspective. If you have equal randomized decentralized job distribution, maybe this isn't a problem. It adjusts based on whatever. But if you don't, which in the case of Dynex you currently do not have, you have a centralized job distribution through the malab endpoints, then you have the potential for manipulation and advantages going to certain individuals, and that has to be resolved. And the only way I see that being resolved is figuring out how to decentralize the malab endpoints, making that more transparent about which jobs are going to which workers. And frankly, possibly removing either the, having some sort of alternating algorithm that when it's a single precision job, it bounces to it and then it randomly bounces back. I don't know how to solve it. But it is weird, and it does bring up an issue. I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions surrounding it. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, I currently have all of my GPUs turned off because I am testing some Bitcoin miners here currently. In this particular case, we have some S19s. We have about 9 S19 Pros. They're running in low power mode right now. I'm just making sure they work for the week. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything crazy. We're almost 700 terahash. I have 2 that have to go out for RMA, and then 9 that are fully functioning. So these are all the S19 Pro 100 and, well, there's a mix of 100 and 104 terahash. All the 96 terahash and below are changing. A lot of content coming to the channel for this. We're going to be individually, testing out and reviewing each individual S19 Pro, S19J Pros, that sort of thing. The different terahash models, 88 terahash and up. So we'll get a good viewpoint from those. We'll have the stock firmwares versus, low power mode firmwares for the AM logic boards. I have Epic boards in stock. I have ZIL Linux boards in stock, so we can test, the Epic firmware, which has no dev fee, by the way, which is really interesting. Then we have the ZIL Linux board, which we can flash with a variety of different firmwares, from Hive OS to Brains to Luxor OS, a lot of different opportunities there. Lots of content coming to the channel from that perspective. And then, of course, moving on from there, I think here in the future, we still have a bunch of GPU content coming out. We have the RTX 4070, we have the RTX 4060 Ti, and looking to get more GPUs for testing on the channel. I have done the best I can to basically take some opportunities to invest into the channel during the bear market. So there you go. That's what happened to the Caspa, in case you're wondering. And I'm happy with the decision. I realize a lot of people, are going to say you should have held. What are we at, right? I think it's back above 2, right? We'll look at that for you guys, or it was getting close to going back above 2. I guess not. Okay. Anyways, I'm not really worried about it then. Still not at a loss. I don't know. Plus, it's cryptocurrency. It is what it is. Take opportunities as you can, do what you want. We can talk about that more over on sonofatech.locals later on if you wish, but that's about it. Let's look at profitability once again on GPUs here. We're seeing Pepe W. And of course, CCX and Dynex are still here. Well, yeah, CCX has been, here for a while. Really, the hot talk is Pepe W. There's an interesting, the A4000 is showing profitable on Caspa right now, which is quite interesting. So Caspa, with its pump, has come up, as well as Caspa lost about 15% of its hash rate here recently. So if we want to talk about some weirdness going on, this is more than likely, let me show you guys here. We've gone down from 1 petahash to 884 terahash a second, or 870 terahash a second. Best to my knowledge, this is going to be, because June 5th, remember, is all the KS2s getting shipped out. So Ice River's been mining. It looks like they're about to ship out 130 terahash worth of KS1s and KS2s. So I would presume that this hash rate comes back on June 5th or thereabouts, right? I think they're trying to get them shipped out on June 5th, with tariffs and all of that sort of stuff, and customs, and where they're going and who's getting them and who's powering them on. We are probably going to see by mid-June, let's go back up above that. And then, depending on the pre-sales and whatnot with Antminer, right, Bitmain, I would presume we also start to see more hash rate come online. I think the hash rate pushing over 1 petahash has all been Ice River potentially. And then from there, I think we'll see some other things come into play. It is still profitable on FPGAs. As you saw, some particular GPUs are still profitable. So I think what we're seeing here, or left over, is going to be primarily FPGAs. Like to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below, as well in the description, or in the comment section below as well. So this is an interesting turn of events. I think that we've seen there's a difficulty drop coinciding as well. Pretty steady difficulty adjustment, but we are still 5 days ahead on the network. A lot of people have questions surrounding that. I haven't seen a good answer yet, but if I do get a good answer from you guys, I will let you know. So, other than that, I think that we have, well, let's go ahead and look at that Pepe proof of work too. Excuse me. Took a sip of water and it got caught in the wrong pipe there. So it's sitting at 3 terahash a second. I kind of wanted to get a pulse on it as we move forward. It is sub penny right now. It is only currently on a single exchange, which I think, or two exchanges now, excuse me. ZEGX and then BitZoneX. And so these are a couple, but the volume's extremely low. Is it spec mineable? I mean, I guess borderline spec mineable. Is it, you know, does it look like something that has, you know, legs behind it? You know, your opinion's your opinion. Obviously, hash rate 68% on mining for people is not a great sign. So take that into account as you will. And move on from there. Let's look at ASIC miner profitability. Look at this KS3 coming in at $3,733 a day. You know, I'm sorry. Still don't think that's sustainable. Be careful with these miners. They run a pretty penny. Look, I get that we have a different emissions schedule for Caspa that puts it at an advantage compared to Kadena when we get past, you know, this initial higher reward section. But when we look at this as it sits, and even going into August where we still have a block reward of 185 per block, this is not a sustainable price. Now, it will go down no matter what due to difficulty. And it does sound like Caspa is having the largest production of miners from Bitmain for an altcoin that we've ever seen. So it should be a significant increase in difficulty, which will naturally drive this price down along with the reduction in reward. I think if we look at a price of where it's sitting right now, just from difficulty and block reward reduction, these miners will be at like $120 per day projected, you know, after you account for difficulty. Now, my initial difficulty calculations were sitting around somewhere where the KA3 was, which was going to like put you around that 2000 release. Unfortunately, I think that it's a lot higher than that. I don't know where it's at necessarily, but 1,500 units alone have gone to third parties, it sounds like, or third party reseller, a single one, potentially. Could be a rumor, could be BS. I have already seen it on the supply chain and supply channel side. I haven't verified prices yet, but the prices in bulk are looking a lot lower than what you're seeing from Bitmain and third-party resellers right now. So keep that in mind. That means that I would assume there is some sort of expectation for the demand of these to decrease along with the difficulty increase and so on. So second batches are usually going to be the safer investment. Of course, you do get the benefit of earning these early rewards if you do get the miner in time. So there is that potentially. But what that also causes on a first batch run, and this is the concern that I've talked about in could Caspa go sub penny and so on, is that when these miners reach their customers, two things happen. Typically Bitmain, once they start shipping, starts to dump the coin. That's one, right? And they keep in mind they're probably going to be mining it for a while. Two, every single miner will race to ROI, because if you do not race to ROI, you won't ROI. Let me explain this, because this is a concept that, like, I think a lot of people don't understand, so I'm going to try to articulate it. But imagine that it's this case, right? Two people buy the same miner for the same price. Whenever one person sells that coin, the price of that coin goes down. So whoever sells the coin first has the better chance at returning their investment than the person that doesn't sell that, right? So this is the danger and the concern surrounding essentially that August drop, is those two things in parallel together, adding that sell pressure to Caspa. I think what you see once again to articulate and clarify is that Caspa has a very fast emission schedule, which means, in my humble opinion, that it will survive better and recover quicker than something like Kadena, but that doesn't mean that your immediate network effects and effects of price don't happen from these factors, right? So just keep that in mind, and then keep in mind, profitability, like I said, right now, if we only adjusted for projected amount of miners, difficulty, and block reward reduction without changing price, you're really more around that $100 to $150 range per day. So there you go. That's pretty much where we're at with Caspa. The KS2s, I mean, you were paying what, $10,000 less or something than what you're going to be able to get the KS3s for. Even if they are real and they show up on June 5th, it's a short lifespan, but that's the other thing. We do have a little bit of the same race to ROI that's going to happen, because everybody that's getting KS2 and KS1s, if those are in fact going out, are going to try to ROI faster than everybody else. And that's running into August, right? And that's because there's going to be a serious fear that your KS2 becomes unprofitable and can't compete with the KS3 once it launches. Okay. So you'll want to try to ROI that as quickly as possible. Now, a nice stable miner that stayed in the top 5 for a long time, the Antminer L7 is still in 3rd position. The Antminer K7 is in 4th position. I mean, I guess there's technically the XP Hydro 255 terahash model, but that's not until May, well, which is this month. But my understanding is these aren't really going out yet. Most of what you're seeing still with the Hydros are the 184 terahash a second is pretty much what's getting energized right now. K7, like I said, is going to be in that 5th position. The Antminer D7, odd because the D9 is out, but it is profitable on Dash right now. This was primarily, best I could tell, due to the fact that we had a reduction. Well, the hard fork failed, and I thought we would start to see this come back down. You can see the price reduction from it, but it doesn't look like the network has fully recovered from the hard fork failure. So not everybody has gotten their miners back online. And in fact, Luxor still down, which I tweeted them about that because I was on Luxor pool and they never came back up. So the Dash network is not looking healthy, to say the least, but it is profitable because the hash rate is lower and people have not reconnected. So kind of nice to be running a D9 right now, not going to lie. A little bit of a perk going on. Antminer KA3 is dropped from the $8 a day level to under the $7 a day level. That will potentially recover at some point in moving into the halving of Bitcoin, but for now I wouldn't be too hot on it. And then the rest of these just fall in line. The Antminer S19 Pro is going to be, let's see, on Bitcoin netting 37 cents a day on Antpool, 28 cents a day on Poolin, and so on. So there you go. As far as the S19 Pro, less than $1 a day at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Boom. So thank you everybody for watching. Be sure to hit the like, comment, and subscribe down below. 111 concurrent viewers. Make a wish. I will make mine. Let's get into Q&A. Remember, super chats are never required, always appreciated. First to be answered because they're the easiest to read. Tagging @SonOfATech will highlight the message orange, and I will be able to read it and go ahead and get in on that. So I'm going to zoom in here and take a look at what do you guys got for me today. I think Hawk Crypto Mining is in the chat. Make sure you guys go subscribe to his channel. DJ Minds is in the chat. Make sure you go to subscribe to his channel as well. Mind Something says, "Ask Avatech, can a new coin or old coin switch to K heavy hash and eventually take advantage of the new Caspa ASICs?" I mean, you could even just straight up fork Caspa, right? Because it's open. So go on GitHub, fork it. Done. RD27 says, "Ask Avatech, thoughts on Ice River, real or fake?" Like we showed earlier, because they announced the June 5th release, early release of the KS2s, and due to the fact that we saw 130 terahash drop off of the network this week, my leaning is that the KS2s are very real. Yes. In fact, what I would assume it is, to the best of my ability, is a single dashboard from a KS3. Something like along those lines, right? So it's appearing to be real. And then if we calculated that out, right, we lost 170 terahash on the network. Divided by 2, that would be only about 85 units. So I don't know that they really sold that many or manufactured that many, right? But the only other thing that would have come off there would have probably been FPGAs, but we already saw the FPGA exodus before the last decline in price, right? We had that pump up to the 3 cents. Then remember, because we reported on this, right? What happened is all the FPGAs hit the market. Third-party retailers like Coastal Crypto was able to pick them up, that sort of thing. And as soon as all of those sales went through for the FPGAs, the market dumped, right? And then the price came down. So when we're talking about the effects of like mining or whatever that may be, what happened here recently, all the KS2s sold, they prepped them for shipping, reduction of hash rate on the network, and price goes down to that 1.2 cents range. Okay. So there is this effect going on. The question will be, of course, as we move into KS3s, is it a more dramatic effect? Daniel Hall says, "Ask Avatech, too bad the Octominer server cases are not 16x PCIe length." Yeah, they would be significantly more expensive, of course. So there is that. Regent, and nobody would have bought them. Right? Like back in the ETH days, nobody would have bought Octominers if they had Threadrippers and Epics in them. They just wouldn't. Raj FVX says, "Ask Avatech, how much less will we make on the L7 once Litecoin goes into the halving? Looking at buying an L7 or 2 S19J Pro 100 terahash models." Well, here's the thing that we have to be completely honest about. Halvings haven't really been that impactful on alternative currencies other than Bitcoin. The only halving that really seems to be impactful is the Bitcoin halving. So I would think that your S19J Pro 100 terahash model is a safer buy, or at least a more stable or less volatile buy than the L7. But the price of Dogecoin, could go way up. And I don't think Litecoin will how do I put this? The Litecoin halving has even less of an impact on the L7 because a majority of the profitability comes from the Dogecoin mining alternate of that, right? When you're merge mining with it. Rondi $50 super chat. Thank you, good sir. Says, much love, stay healthy, and we need you healthy. I am working on it, my friend. I am. I'll do an update this weekend over on the Blind Run channel. I'm going to try to record one for you guys tomorrow. Big baller. RD27 says, outside of tech, what is the Litecoin reduction at the halving? That's a good question. I haven't checked because I don't have an L7. Let's go look. The next Litecoin halving date is 2023 and reduces the Litecoin block reward from 12.5 to 6.25 Litecoin. Litecoin halving 2023 countdown predictions is based on the Litecoin block time of 150 seconds, blah, blah, blah. So it's going down to 6.25. The majority of that profitability on the L7 is really going to be due to Dogecoin anyways. RD27 says it is, well, educate me. It's not actually a halving. $12.5 divided by 2 sounds like 6.25. The countdown is 67 days, 1 hour and 50 minutes. I guess, what do you mean by it's not actually a halving? Maybe educate me. You're wrong. Okay. Hey, we all got to keep each other in check. I need to learn from y'all. You all need to learn from me. And we just keep going and we keep moving forward and we keep progressing, learning, and becoming better, stronger, smarter, happier human beings. Thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to hit the like, comment, subscribe, and notification bells down below. We're going to be testing the RTX 4060 Ti over on sonofatech.locals.com. Don't forget to check out, of course, my crypto mining e-course on sonofatech.com and put it in your favorites tab because a shop is coming over there soon. Boom. I will see you next Tuesday.